Okay, so we're recording now. Just
Are we live streaming?
well, I haven't tested out the Wi-Fi here. I assume we have Wi-Fi. I haven't checked that out for sure.
Yeah.
We do. Okay, good. Well, I don't know if it's going to be. I mean, I don't want to hog up the Wi-Fi for something that. And I guess the other thing is too.
I was just being facetious.
No, but yeah, that's a good question, and I'm trying very hard not to break any civil rules here. So I'm Gib. I got this idea in mind. Starting to, reserve off, birds of feathers, a bunch of people get together, have fun, talking about things that are of interest to them. This is of interest to me, why? Because, I'm a team lead at a big company, and I find that people who come in need a little bit of encouragement and, a little bit more work to become programmers and to do IT type work. I mean, so I'm just talking about coding here. I'm not even talking about the big IT stuff, right? I'd like to, help, some people out. That's kind of a fun thing to do. I've got this month project I'm working at. Hey, how you doing? Lots of chords here. So I'm working with the City of Dearborn Library to bring some workshops in. I don't know, maybe programming for, or timid or whatever. We're recording.
What?
We're recording this, so just so you know, don't say anything bad about me. So we know there are a lot of smart people out there who can learn code, write software, program, but they don't. Why not?
Well, I came myself because when I started studying in school, it never clicked for me. It never clicked together like other subjects did. And I was not finding myself having a very hard time, doing it at all. So I came here to try to get more insight and see if there might be some sort of block in my mind or something, that I'm just not seeing it. If there's a subject I might need more practice on, if I need more math classes, or whatever it is. So that is why I'm here.
Okay, so I want to play off this math class thing. So math is not necessary for programming. There are certain things you write programs for that math would be needed for. But I have to write a program that algorithms or
Algebra helps.
Algebra
helps.
Yeah, so it does help to have some background in, really a formal way of representing things. I mean, that's kind of the way I would approach it. So, the school I went to, programming language gave you, they counted that toward foreign language. But that's kind of cool, I didn't have to learn French.
I just missed that in
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
They changed that the year before me. I got to high school.
Well, so, if it's, I don't know, intimidation, you just, if you're afraid to do this, I think a lot of it is you just have to spend the time with it, right? Like any other new skill, you learn to be bad at it first. You just learn not to do that bad thing you did at one time, and now you're just a little bit better. So what can we do to help you? Is there something that we can do?
I didn't want to focus it around myself. I didn't know if to take.
Well, so one of the questions specifically here, what can we do to expand the coding track? So I'm trying to focus it to
No problem. I
individuals
understand.
to make it a real question, right? I mean, I can go off and say, I'm going to set up a series of classes for newbies on how to do programming, and it won't really get anything. Nobody will be interested in hearing you talk about that. But if I said, I'm going to offer us a class to you, you're going to come in for free. And you tell me what hours you want to do this, and I'll set this thing up for you. And we'll have, someone who can walk you through the basics of programming. The understanding is that you have to spend some of your own time studying, right? Would that be a reasonable thing that you might be interested in?
How would you be structuring the courses then? That would be my question.
Okay, so what I would do is, I have access to the Dearborn Public Library. I'm trying to set up workshops for them. So if I said that, okay, for the next several weeks, I'm going to do every Wednesday at 6 p.m. We're going to set up this computer room, and we're going to have people come here and learn a little bit about programming, and get them to approve that. And they have to look at it and say, yeah, it's useful to us, it makes sense to us, or or maybe that doesn't fit their rules, whatever.
I think what you said just a moment ago about it being useful for you is that, I'm pretty knowledgeable on many other computer subjects, and, helping people who are less knowledgeable than me try to get up. Like one of my first little triumphs was getting my mom to stop asking a question for everything by just explaining to her, that there's a simple search box right there in your browser. Put it in as a question, and she did it. That only bugs me for the important stuff, and it was one of the things. She's the trainer and performance improvement specialist, so I was just putting it in terms of the language she spoke, so it became something of interest, and it's now something that she can share with her peers. There's that, hey, there's this bit in it for you. So that is one of the things that I think if I'm just going to say approaching programming at first, that would be certainly the best hook to offer. That there's is something immediately tangible to get your interest into it. I mean, of course, there is going to be the practice work in there, and practice is not fun. That is just the first thing I would say to whet your interest into it. That is just the first thing that comes to mind when you say that.
Okay, well, so let's see a whole gradation or a whole range of things going on here, right? So we have mom doesn't know how to use the computer, right? And so I'm thinking, well, we'll have some introductory classes to get some people started. There's another group of people who know how to use computers, but using computers for a long time. They just want to know specifically program.
Yes.
How do I get this computer to do what I want to do using a programming language? And really narrow it down. And I can, do a very narrow, this is, say, pick a language, Java, right? This is Java on your PC. This is how you start up a Java environment, and this is how you get it all to work and stuff. That could be several sessions, getting us further and further. This is how you use Java to paint a window and do, fancy graphic, moving things around and all that kind of thing. And just introduce the programming concepts using actual examples of how to do that with a real language to do some real work, So, okay, what do you think? Is that something that other people think might solve the problem why Johnny can't code? If we started providing free classes, available at a public library that do specific types of, this is programming 101. I hope some people want to see.
I've used Val for programming robots. I did QBasic a long time ago, but I couldn't forget that. And I've found, so we can do programming class in C++, and it felt very, very review based on this Val.
Very, very what?
Felt very much like a review based on Val, QBasic.
yeah.
Syntax was different, but
The concepts carried over.
the concepts are over, and it's like, there was something about it was just a really bad headache when it was repeated. I don't know why.
Okay, well, there's definitely something about physical capabilities. I mean, I don't remember things like I used to. When I was 20 years old trying to learn a programming language, okay, that's the syntax here, okay, this, and now it's like, what was that syntax again? So your interest level, right? I mean, you're learning something and you know that concept, you don't want to spend a lot of time going over that same material again. So, it could be that you get a scheduled sequence of learning and it becomes boring to some people who understand some of the basics. Okay, so is that what's holding people up from learning programming? They just don't feel that they're going to be learning things that are different from what they have?
Well, I doubt that's the case for very many people. It's probably just mostly.
Well, sometimes people sign up for degrees and stuff. Because one of my friends, we were working, and he was doing it's going to have to teach you basic programming, and they didn't know logic. For you do one step, second step, third step, so a lot of people may not understand.
Yeah. So you have to get into why is it the public schools are failing us, and why is it that we're not learning the basics of scientific method, of test methodology, of this concept of describe how to tie a shoe, describe how to change the tire of a car, and people don't even know how to approach, a sequence of events and working your way logically through the topic. So there are going to be workshops on that. I attended a class, and this is a really fun class. Some people got bored, but I enjoyed it. Building paper airplanes, right? And a certain, they actually give you a piece of paper with drawing on it so you follow the folds, right? And then for the test you could do, like put a paper clip on a certain part of it, and and try to do something, distance or whatever. And another one was like helicopter, see how long you can make it suspend in the air. And then you do scientific tests with that, something that engages you in a real, a result, but then teaches you what's on behind the scenes, something of a general nature that's useful, like a scientific principle. And so we were walking out of the class, and the one person was shaking her head, could not understand what the class is about, didn't get the basic concept. Spent an entire day doing all these little things with paper and testing these things out, recording stuff, without any clue what it all meant. And so it's kind of tough. There's some different ways of seeing things, and some people just don't clue in on. I guess what I was saying is you have to have the background in order to get to the basics of the foundation that makes it worthwhile.
One thing I would say that does bring a question of how to schedule, and schedule's the wrong word, but format a class to try to bring people up to that level, because one thing as you were talking about, I realized I had this picture on my phone. It's not the best, but it was a part of an exercise I was in, and here it's just dried spaghetti strands and marshmallows, and the challenge was to make the highest tower. So I got with a pair of women who were older than me. There were some various limitations on that, but I had some basic principles like we want to build like a base. I put triangular pyramids because those were nice solid structures that then we could put a further structure on top of. And after my team won the challenge, and afterwards one of the other challenges I heard complaining about, man, how did they get an engineer on their team? I'm like, I'm not an engineer.
Yeah.
I just happened to along the way pick up that that is a solid style of structure. So we were going to make a very strong base, and then build it up for that. So that is more of an educational philosophy question of trying to bring people up to the level, because we know, as you mentioned, public school failing thing, and then there's the point where if you miss some of where it's easier to teach you as a kid, like problem solving and trying to make that a method. If you miss that, trying to catch up adults to that, it sounds like its own problem. I'm sure that I posed a question that many doctoral thesis can be written on. So it's nothing that seems like it would have a simple answer.
Go ahead.
Well, sometimes you need the common sense gene, because you have to know nothing from the people that know everything.
I would think a lot of that, you talk about common sense as if there's just one. There's all kinds of, my wife knows more about people things than I ever hope to accomplish, But try to get her to, do something mechanical, it's a challenge for her. I might find something mechanical easy to do, but that people skills, it's like, why are you bothering with that,
I talked about my mother earlier. She's so great at networking, education concepts, and like my sister and I at one point were banging our heads against the wall trying to explain this thing, what a black hole really is, in relation to the series cosmos going on, and that just using an example, it's like a real world life, divide by zero result, and so like no math. Like my sister and I were just banging our head. No, it's so simple. You divide by zero, and it gives you infinity. You can't escape the gravity. There's an infinite pull on you, effectively, at that point. But I think your point about, the common, people have build around their interests, and the common sense. One of the things of, the nerd culture stereotyped as being, socially inept, because I think there may not be as much education on social issues as with some other communities, which is technical issues.
Yeah, so, again, I think it's like multiple intelligence with that concept. So it's gotta be that, you're spending time learning this particular skill, so you teach little girls how to get along or how to, interface with other people, and you're teaching little boys how to move trucks around or something like that. So just that constant use of those particular skill sets builds up that level of expertise.
And then one thing you mentioned earlier, the exercise with the paper airplanes, that did strike me as something I was looking for because there was the immediate feedback of that. I assume distance trials and versus like with the helicopter styles that, there was the challenge of, how long would it take you to hit the ground with your design, that immediate sort of gauge feedback.
But the overall concern was that someone was presented with all the information to learn this concept, and they didn't. They just didn't get the basic understood before they started. So is there anybody else who likes to talk? Really not, huh? Just to catch us up now, I'm Gib, I came up with this concept, and so this is just something I threw out. If anybody wants to jump in, this is birds of a feather, where you just talk about things. So why is it that Johnny can't code? I'm just thinking there's got to be a lot of reasons why, and things maybe we could do to make it easier for beginners to learn programming. But maybe we shouldn't do that. Is it really worthwhile getting people who have less of an interest and don't have the motivation to go start coding? You imagine like the lights out there, the traffic lights being coded by someone who really wasn't interested in programming, was just doing it for something to do.
I think there is so much of a potential that you might be interested in it, but you might know it, that I think that there is the inherent worth of reaching out. That there's something that, you might come across in life that is so interesting to you and challenging to you. My sister isn't here, but one thing she's been working on is she wanted to do a webcomic, but very high concept one of space colonization with a very realistic thing. So she keeps talking to me as I'm interested in space too, and she'll bounce various ideas from me about what would a space elevator on Mars, where would you want to have the transit point? Would you want it at the equilibrium point, geostationary orbit, or on the counterweight? And that's just you want a geostationary orbit to make orbital mechanics the easiest. That's something that she's spending a lot of time in.
So has she read Niven?
No, she hasn't. I don't think I can't recall she's read any Larry Niven, but I haven't read too much about him other than the bit of Green World and Neutron Star, perhaps.
Okay, so the basic concept, you do the research before you try to do something, right?
Yeah.
So Niven is the one who talked a lot about this space elevator thing. So much like you shouldn't go into programming without some of the concepts in the background. And I can see people who like to do the robotics, right? And suddenly now they got this little spider thing and they're just trying to code something and they're, I've seen programmers like, I don't know how Val would relate this, but just doing things that don't make sense to someone who has a little experience in programming, right?
Yeah. So Val's actually over Texas, big arm manufacturer.
Oh, the building a car kind of.
Yeah.
Okay, but I've seen there's been a lot of literature about kids. This Lego Smart, I think it's what it's called.
Bionics, or
It's a Lego building block thing for
Lego
robots.
It's Lego Mindstorm.
Mindstorm, yes. And so I bought one of those kits, and I put together the first little mechanical thing, and yeah, I went around, and oh, okay, that was cool, but now there's thousands of parts I just don't have the, so the time I had to learn all that. Now these kids are out there building these elaborate things, to do stuff. I was at, they brought some of these robots into the building I work at that like threw a big ball in, over a barrier type of thing. Took a lot of effort, I'm sure, a lot of expertise to do that type of thing. But this is what kids are getting exposed to now. In our day, we had like a math book, we had one math problem per, per page or, concept per chapter, whatever. Now they have, exposure to something that's going to be real and make something worthwhile when they're done, and use those concepts over and over again to do something in the real world that will make sense. So I think that's another approach to this, rather than having, like I was saying earlier, these dry presentation type things where someone gets up and talks to you. You start to do something. You actually build something that's worthwhile or has meaning to you, or you make money doing it. That's nothing. 12-year-old can make money doing web design. Why not?
Is that where this question came to you from working with Mindsurf? I mean, where did you come up with this question?
Well, so I came up with it basically because I'm a team lead in a big company, and it's tough to find people who understand concepts, right? So we have
You're a programming team lead?
So I'm a team lead in an application support.
Okay.
That basically, because of money being short and all that stuff, some of our people who grew up in the support area now have to develop something because we can't get the developers to do anything because we don't have money to give them. Right. So it's like all these constrictions and organizational issues and stuff like that. So we have these really smart people who want to do programming and can do some of that, or they know the wrong language, the wrong platform or something like that. I want you to take this code and change it into Java, but they're COBOL programmers. It's like, oh, you can't. A lot of that stuff will transfer over, but some of it isn't.
You still have COBOL programmers?
Yes.
I was going to say, there's a lot of legacy out there.
So when Kurt goes over to Spot,
Are you in
he says,
finance?
Pardon?
Are you in finance?
No.
There's a lot of COBOL in finance.
Manufacturing. I swear, when Kurt goes to Spock and says do something, Spock is going to bring up his COBOL compiler to make that thing go. Yeah, it's funny though. We've been getting rid of COBOL since I started working.
Oh yeah. In the 90s, people were saying,
Well, you're going to have to come out of the figures of the bankers, because 99% of the banks are still running mainframes. And they're not going to change unless it totally breaks, so you can't make it run anymore.
Yep.
So we got plenty of time.
Now, my big thing is trying to get my son interested. He has some attention deficit orders and stuff. And especially having to do schoolwork and stuff, he puts down the answer, but unfortunately our school systems want to see what you did.
Yeah.
And they can maybe program or help them figure out some of those logical steps.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be interested in Python, but I don't know, I may think Scratch or something, may have to try something else to try to get him more involved.
Yeah.
So he can kind of train his mind to do more logical things.
Yeah, so what tool set would be a good one to give a child who has attention deficit? I mean, that's a tough. Just a second. Let's see. I mean, I know these guys. There's a couple clubs in the area. Mug is one of them, and they have they get 30 people in a meeting, and they have a presentation, and the guy sits there for an hour talking about some deep technical topic, and it's very interesting. Everybody's sitting there, but attention deficit, man, how's that kid going to pick up really depth of understanding of things? That's you can't just give him a book and say, read this.
But he's somewhat like me, and can figure out how to doing so. When his phone doesn't work or computer doesn't work, he hands it to her, and he can set it up for her.
Yeah.
She doesn't even know what app she has on it.
Yeah.
So he's figured that out, but to apply that generic type knowledge to actually, producing,
Something with value.
programming and stuff like that.
If I can offer a suggestion, I would want to try to do it, teach them in a way to maximize interpersonal interaction. Is I've got ADHD, me myself, and that was one of the biggest turnoffs for the school system, was not working with other people. And when I could work with other people, that I shined. Book work, gosh, no.
Yeah, I'd almost say like a Lego Mindstorm would be an interesting start for him.
If folks are doing something like that, nice, but the area you're in, nobody, a lot of places that are doing the competitions now.
Yeah.
But I come from Cincinnati, Ohio, and there's really not anything happening in that area. Because I have some friends that are in Iowa, and one of the ones is friend's son, he's on their team, and he actually went from this local area, and it was like, came in like first or second, they were going to the state competition.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, so, go ahead.
no, but the friend's son, he was one that they're going to have to do the programming.
I just wonder, there's this thing called the internet, that no matter where you are, you could potentially have people on the internet that could, walk them through some things, and you could show them some things, and there's gotta be all kinds of forums and clubs and stuff online.
Well, man, they're trying to still keep them friends with people in Iowa, and see if you can get something with the things that they're doing with the brainstorm.
I did want to share one thing. I haven't read through this, but I remember seeing it along the way. There's a website, inventwithpython.com, where you can either buy the guy's books or get them for free. They are under Creative Commons, and it's learning to program, and it's the byline, learn to program by making computer games with Python. So if that might be something to give him more immediate feedback of, oh, hey, a game, this is fun.
So you said the book is Invent.
It's inventwithpython.com. I've got it up on my phone.
The MUG group that I belong to, penguicon2014v668, just had a presentation, last one. One of the local guys that you'll see passing in the hallways here today, I'm sure, he's a big, tech guy in the area, was doing a presentation on how he wrote a program using one of these tool sets.
Yeah.
And actually showed the code and walked us through how to do that. In like an hour and a half, you basically see everything you need to do to write a program that does, a specific locating. So, and we videotape stuff. So it's probably out on the internet. MUG.org. Yes, MUG. MichiganUserGroup.org. We'll have the videos on there.
How come you haven't applied to have your own Mindstorm group in your area? I mean, there's a lot, Lego actually will sponsor these things. You have to buy all the kits from them, unfortunately. You can't go on by third-party cheaper parts, but, you could set up your own group, because that's usually what happens, is somebody's father sets it up, and then their kid becomes the core of the team,
I look at that. Unfortunately, the school system my son's in, they're not super, well, they have the computers up, but they're not real techy.
You don't have to do it with the school, though. You can do it yourself.
Yeah.
So what was another thing in my list of questions here? Do schools need to teach the principles that make good coders? So your school is not doing as much as you would hope they would do in this area. Do they need to do that?
They're not just doing techy stuff, but unfortunately, they're big into sport. They have a big arts program.
Yeah.
Doing big theater productions,
Yeah.
and the choirs actually went to China and stuff like that. So they do very well in other areas. There's, probably everything else is the amount of resources and stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure they have to make choices. I was just listening to public radio about some of these major universities making these choices, and one of them was cutting back on some of the sports. It's tough out there. Yeah, so I don't think we can really blame the schools for not providing perfect everything in all these different areas. They have to choose find things that interest people. But I would suspect that if somebody started a group and started doing something, and it became easy for them to just glom onto that, and make it easier. I know we have, some local schools around here that are really into this type of thing. I don't know how that started, How do you get started in something like that? Obviously, you have to have individuals who are interested in it and spend the time on it. It's like the same, trying to do with a library, it's like, just